On this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast, we tackle the story song, The Ballad of Dorothy Parker, from the Sign of the Times album. Joining me to navigate the surreal lyrical content of this track is first-time guest Angel Monique. Welcome to the show, Angel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm excited to have a new guest again. I've been, hearing things about you from our mutual friend Julian Long, so I'm great to have you on the show. Great to finally talk to you in quote unquote person. But you are new to the show and as a new guest to our listeners. So maybe this would be a great opportunity for you to give like a brief bio about yourself and kind of give us your Prince origin story, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So I'm going to age myself here, which is okay. My intro to Prince was the song Soft and Wet from the For You album. And I was probably 5 or 6 years old when it was on the radio. That was the first song that I remember, and one of the first songs I can remember learning all of the words to. I don't know how in the world my parents were cool with that.
Right.
I don't know how.
It's a little risque.
Yes, definitely. But my father was the lead singer in his own band when probably up until I was maybe 6 or 7 years old. So music was always very much a part of our household. So I always sang, even as a little kid. There was always music, and I always sang. So it was one of the first songs that not only did I love the words, but I loved the music. I appreciated the instrumentation. And one of the moments that I knew that I also wanted to play music. It's when I knew that I wanted to sing and knew that instruments, that was something that I knew that I wanted to do in my life, that it was that important to me. So that was my introduction to Prince. That was my fall in love moment, Soft and Wet at 5 or 6 years old.
Wow. Very cool. So did you kind of listen to Prince then from that point on, or did you ever have like a moment in your life where, Prince's music wasn't speaking to you in the same way as it used to?
There was never a moment without him.
Okay.
All of my life from that point on, every album on wax, on tape cassette, a CD, every single one of them I had. And I love that my parents appreciated my love so much that they purchased every one of them.
Nice.
They purchased every one of them, yeah. So there was always the influence there, always.
Very cool. Yeah, because I think everybody's got like a different story, obviously, and then they have different touch points in Prince's career because it's such a long career. So it wouldn't surprise me, because as we grow older, like especially if somebody comes across Prince as somebody very young and a child, taste can sometimes change. And like what you loved when you were 5 or 6 years old, maybe you move on to a different form of music that's your preferred style or genre, and maybe Prince's music no longer is important. But for those that have, followed him from the beginning, from For You and Soft and Wet, all the way to the end of his career, that is really cool, because you were experiencing his evolution and his growth and his ability to change with the times and also change his music, take on new genres within his repertoire and stick with it. Maybe you didn't love everything, or I don't know, maybe you did, but there might have been some things that spoke to you more than others, but you still were there for the whole thing, for the whole ride, which is really cool. And I think it's pretty rare.
Yeah, definitely some things spoke to me more than others. And I think that there may have been some moments that I may have not loved something, but at a time my parents changed and they got super religious. And there was a moment where we weren't allowed to listen to secular music. And so I don't know if maybe in that time I may not have felt the same, but because I couldn't listen to it meant I was absolutely going to listen to it. So I was finding it everywhere I could find it because I wasn't allowed to listen to it. So, and in those moments, I was over at a cousin's house over here, albums, that were coming out that I wasn't allowed to have. One parent, my mom first was very into this particular denomination, but my dad wasn't. So he was buying the albums for me, and then they would be hidden somewhere. So I never did, I never did lose it because somebody was always buying it for me. So I never completely lost it.
Perfect
Yeah,
setup for you to always have that
it
kind of that
worked.
in. Yeah.
Yeah,
Whether it was Dirty Mind or 1999 or Around the World in a Day, whatever it was, Purple Rain, you always kind of were able to stick with it, which is cool.
yeah,
But what we're talking about today is the Ballad of Dorothy Parker off Sign of the Times, 1987.
yeah.
So this is, from the way I understand it, one of your favorite Prince songs of all time. Is that correct?
This is my favorite Prince song of all times.
Not just one of them. It is
It
the,
is
yeah.
it took me until probably 2 years ago to realize that I actually had a favorite song because, as I was telling you before, a friend told me who is true what person who's truly a fan actually has one favorite song. And I mean, like, I felt shamed almost, like I
Yeah,
can't
you're
actually
being
say that I
challenged.
actually, yeah, like, how am I going to say that? But I had reasons, for it being a favorite, and it's the one that I listened to so much and so often until finally I was like, well, I actually do have one. And I think that were I not a musician, then maybe I wouldn't have had one because the reasons are about the music. It's not just about the lyrics, but it's about the music and about the way that the song came about. But this is definitely my favorite Prince song. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. It's not my favorite Prince song of all time, but it's certainly up there, and it's certainly in contention for my favorite song off Sign of the Times,
Yeah.
which is an album that's just stacked with great songs. So,
Yeah.
that's a pretty I'd say that that's a pretty high praise for a song to be either, like one or two, or just depending on my day on this record. And it's the fourth track on the album on disc
Mhm.
one, and it follows the really banging funk jam housequake, like a really kind of cool upbeat song, and then you kind of get to this next song, which is a really, in many ways, strange musical composition. And
Yeah.
I think you alluded to a little bit of its origin of like why it sounds the way it does. And
Hmm.
I'm going to reiterate just a really kind of truncated version of the story for the listeners if you're not aware of what happened. But I also, if you want a little more detail around the story, there's been lots of accounts from Prince's engineer at the time, Susan Rogers, about what happened on the day the song was recorded. So the way that it's kind of been relayed to us, decades later, is that Prince had commissioned to get a new studio in his house on Galpin Boulevard. This is before Paisley Park, not much longer before Paisley Park was finished, but it was before. And so he wanted to recreate the studio that he had been using at Sunset Sound in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. And so he had this new console installed in his house, in his home studio, and he, I guess, had like a dream the night before, and, as it was being set up. So it wasn't completely fully set up yet. And then one night he had a dream, and the song that he really felt like he needed to record this song, and he had asked his engineer Susan if Susan Rogers, if the console was ready, if the studio was ready, and she's like, I think so. I think it's pretty much ready to go. But there was this flaw in the console because apparently there was a power outage, and when the power came back up, it didn't come back up on the console fully. Like half of it was receiving the right amount of power, and the other half was not. But this wasn't noticed right away, and so Prince started recording and getting his thoughts out there and getting the music out there and singing it. And Susan noticed the mistake, but she didn't stop him because he was kind of on a roll, and he had this creative juices flowing, and it just felt like I don't really want to stop him when he's on a roll like this, but also at the same time I'm a little nervous because what if it sounds like shit and he has to redo it? He's going to be really angry at me. So all things said, he listens to it after the fact, notices just like in passing, oh, it doesn't sound quite so, perfect, but I really like how it ended up. And so he kept it. It was one of those happy accidents where the flaw and the how the power was missing from half of the console ended up making the song sound as unique as it does, which I've heard it described this way, and it totally makes sense to me. It kind of sounds like a little bit muddy and a little bit underwater. Like it's not as bright. The sound isn't as upfront and bright as you might expect it to be. Did I get the story right, Angel?
That's the story. That's the story.
It's been told countless times, especially now with the Sign of the Times being reissued as a super deluxe edition last year. Then there was the official Prince podcast, and so there's been a lot of opportunities to tell this story again. But if in case anybody who's listening to the show hasn't read about it or heard it already, that's my kind of 2-cent version of that story.
Yeah.
But it sounds like nothing else, which, makes it memorable, makes it cool. It's got that really intricate drum programming. It's got like keyboards are spattered throughout, but it's a fairly minimal sounding song. There's not a ton of bells and whistles to it. There was a saxophone that was added later by Eric Leeds, but then Prince decided not to use that version. So what we got is the more stripped down version. We received the version with saxophone later on the Super Deluxe edition, as an outtake. But that's not the version we ended up with on the album.
Which I am glad of.
Yeah, me too. I prefer this version.
Yeah.
Easily prefer this version.
Definitely. Yeah. What I loved so much about it is that it's so stripped down and that very underwater, muddy sound. It's just, that's what made me love it so much.
Yeah.
It's just flat. It's so flat and dull, but there's so much happening. Like there's so much happening there in the in the keys, that tremolo happening. It's almost like everything's warring with each other. You know what I mean? Like the drive and the drum, it's just it keeps interrupting itself. Through the whole thing, it's interrupting itself. There's these A7s and F9s that are, they never resolve. Like it's just complete genius. But it's so simple that these notes never resolve, so the ear keeps wanting it. You keep waiting on it to resolve, so you keep listening because you keep waiting. There's a lot happening with not very much going on.
Yeah,
That
there's no
is what
hook.
that's what makes me love it so much. There's such a little bit, but there's a whole lot in that little bit. There's a whole lot in there musically. There's a lot.
Definitely. There's like
there's
no hook, there's no chorus to speak of. It's just kind of pushes forward. I just love how simple it is, to your point, but it's still very intricate, still very complicated. For something so simple, it's also complicated. I don't really know how that works. How does something that's simple also be so complicated? Can you imagine somebody trying to recreate this?
Yeah. And no one has.
Like just like it is, like on record, you can't really do it. And that's why even though it's simple, it's not at the same time.
Right. And those background vocals and those little ad libs just bring it all to life So, which is some of my favorite parts of it are, the ad libs are so simple, and you've got a whisper here and a sound, a call and response, and it's a constant drive. It's a constant
Hmm.
drive, and you've got these ad libs happening and these very simple background vocals, and it's just the chords are intricate enough. You know, I don't see anybody attempting to recreate it and being spot on. I don't see that happening.
No, no, not at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of comes across like as a dream, which I guess explains why. I mean, it's supposed to, because that's basically the way the story was presented to us, is that Prince had this dream and he needed to get his thoughts out there into a recorded song based off of this dream he had, which, even though the music and how it sounds was a complete accident, it couldn't have
Hmm.
been more serendipitous, because it matches the tone of the lyrics. The sound of the song matches the tone of the lyrics. It matches the what is being presented to us lyrically, because it is so surreal and it is so just
Right.
kind of off the wall, and that's exactly what we get musically as well.
Right.
Just
And was supposed
just
to be on
great
Dream
accident.
Factory. So do we
Yep.
know why it didn't land on Dream Factory?
No, I don't know, other than just the fact that he was constantly kind of changing his idea of what he wanted to do next after Parade, and so Dream
Yeah.
Factory then turned into Crystal Ball, and Crystal Ball turned into Sign of the
Right.
Times, and the version that he recorded, I mean, the Revolution was still his band when the song was recorded, but he didn't utilize any of them for the music or the recording of the song. I mean, there's credits to Susanna Melvoin as background vocals, but and I guess I can hear it here and there, but it's not as pronounced as in like some other songs that she's on. Um,
Definitely.
for me, it's very much just like a Prince recording, which he always has. Even on Prince and the Revolution albums, there's just Prince songs where he
There's
just did it
Prince.
himself. Yeah,
Right.
this
It
is
all
certainly
worked
one of
out as
those.
it should have.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
So this song does have quite a few lyrics.
Hmm.
It's just basically line after line after line, verse after verse after verse. There's, like I said, no chorus to speak of. So we should probably get started on talking through the lyrics. So I'm going to break them up, um, as they're kind of broken up on like internet. Because if you have the official printed lyrics from the album, it's all just one run-on set of lyrics.
Hmm.
But there's natural pauses that Prince takes when he's singing the song. So I'm going to use those natural pauses as pauses for us. So the first verse goes, Dorothy was a waitress on the promenade. She worked the night shift. Dishwater blonde, tall and fine. She got a lot of tips. And then we have a little bit of a pause after that. So we'll call that verse one.
Okay.
All right, so this first verse to me is kind of just like a setup. It's like kind of like setting up the dream, setting up the story. He's at a restaurant at night because she's working the night shift, so you're painting a picture in your head. Using the word promenade to kind of give you the visual of a restaurant on a waterfront. Maybe has outdoor seating.
Outdoor seat. Hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of the visual I get. It's late at night. I don't know how late this place opens. Night shift maybe also implies that it stays open fairly late, but I don't know if it's a 24-hour place or not. But he's there at night, so it's evening. He meets this woman. She's given a little bit of a physical description of her: tall, blonde, and fine. So okay, I mean it's not a lot of description, but it's enough. And she got a lot of tips. So, okay, so she was good at her job, I guess. I don't know.
She's good at her job and she's good looking, so that explains why she gets a lot of tips.
Yep, yep. She
Yeah.
gets a lot of tips because she's friendly and good looking.
Yeah.
And night shift, I mean, I guess if you're working night shift, if I'm at a restaurant late at night, I might give the night waitress a pretty decent tip, especially if she's got some rough tables that she has to deal with. Sometimes you go to restaurants at night and you have to deal with some of the people who have been out all night, drinking and partying, and then you have to try to, wait on them and serve them
Right.
food, and it could be kind of rough at times. But maybe this place isn't like that. Maybe this is a respectable restaurant. So, what are some of your thoughts, or what do you feel about like these first lines, Angel?
I mean, I think they're pretty straightforward. You know, she's I'd always my thoughts and image of that is it's sidewalk, or it's outdoor seating.
Hmm.
And I always assume, she's dishwater blind, tall and fine. It's pretty self-explanatory. She's a good-looking woman, and she's striking enough, that
Yeah.
she's noticeable in that way. And that's probably why she gets lots of tips,
Yep.
because she's good looking.
Yeah, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So one theory that I've read about this setup verse is that I've heard, and I don't know, maybe it was one person, maybe it was several people. I don't remember anymore. It's been a while, but I've heard people try to or attempt to connect these lines to imply that this woman was a prostitute.
I saw that.
Yeah, and I don't buy it
Yeah.
personally. I mean,
No.
sure, you could say, and I'm putting air quotes, a waitress on the promenade, meaning like maybe she's hanging out outside on the waterfront. She worked the night shift, which is another kind of euphemism used for prostitution. She got a lot of tips, so she has a lot of Johns that pay her well because of her attractive qualities. But I don't know. I don't really get that that's what she's supposed to be. Sure, you could apply that, and I guess it makes sense in the way it's phrased. It doesn't absolutely say she's not. But then
Yeah.
in the next verse, though, there's or not the next verse, but two more verses later, in
Further
verse
down.
three,
Yeah.
it's a tougher sell, I
It's a
think.
long reach. It's a long
Yeah,
reach.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I just felt like I should at least mention it in case anybody else has thought that, and even if you hadn't, then you can come up with your own conclusion of whether or not you believe Dorothy is a prostitute or not.
Yeah.
But I do want to mention, because the first line of this verse, or actually the entire song, is Dorothy was a waitress, and the song is called "The Ballad of Dorothy Parker." So we haven't really
Yes.
touched on that aspect of the song yet. So the titular Dorothy Parker, if we're talking about the real life person, she was I mean, that's a real person for anybody who's
Yeah.
not aware of that. Dorothy Parker was a real person, and she was a writer from like the early to mid 20th centuries, when she was
Hmm.
writing her prose in like the 20s, 30s, 40s, and she was pretty successful. She was very good at her writing, and she made a name for herself for that, for sure. Which, I mean, I guess pretty progressive at the time. Probably not as many women writers that were successful as there probably should have been or could have been, but she was
Yeah.
able to break that glass ceiling for sure.
For
And
sure. I mean, she was a critic, which I found interesting, that she
yeah,
was a critic in the early 20th century. I mean, a poet, sure, she was a poet, but she was a critic as a woman, which is something that I always found very interesting about her.
hmm. And did you hear the story about how Prince claims to not have ever heard of her?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another one. It's like, really? And I
Oh,
question that a
I
little
never
bit too. I
knew
mean,
who she was. Yeah.
I'm not trying to call Prince out as somebody that was bullshitting us on that one, but at the same time, I wonder. I mean, okay, the reasons why I kind of question it, only because she was known for her quick wit. And in the second verse, which goes, "Well, earlier I'd been talking stuff in a violent room, fighting with lovers past. I needed someone with a quicker wit than mine. Dorothy was fast." So right there, he says in the second verse that this Dorothy in his song has a quick wit. She's smart. She's quick with the quip,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what the writer Dorothy Parker was known for as well. So it's either a really intriguing coincidence, A, B, potentially Prince had heard her in passing, or maybe somebody mentioned her in a conversation. He didn't put two and two together, but somehow got stuck in his subconscious, and it manifested itself in this dream he had, and so he had to put it out there. And he doesn't remember where Dorothy Parker, the name, came from because he didn't really, have any firm recollection of that reference
Hmm.
that was made. Or C, it was just a straight up lie, and he knew exactly who she was, but he didn't want to admit it because he wanted, Prince was kind of funny that way, where he liked to play tricks on the media or play tricks even
Yeah.
his friends. So I don't know which one it was, but it's interesting that he never publicly admitted to knowing who she was.
Right. But I mean, the verse is a straight rip of exactly who Dorothy Parker was. I want to go with B because I just want him to be good and right, all things good and right and never wrong.
Yeah, B actually seems to me like the most likely.
Yeah.
Like somebody had mentioned her. I mean, we've all experienced that, right? Like I
Right.
wouldn't say it's like deja vu, but we heard something and we're like, gosh, man, that seems familiar. Why do I know that? It's because, you heard it on TV, or you heard it in a conversation that you were only half paying attention to, or you read
Right.
it really quickly in like an article in a magazine or in a book, a reference in a book. Who knows? Who knows? There's 1,000 ways you can come across the name that also gives a little context around that person's name, and then completely, in your opinion, erasing from your mind because you never think of it again until again it manifests itself in some sort of dream
Right.
that you have where you're not even thinking about it, and all of a sudden, boom, that name comes up again. But
Right.
yeah, I would be remiss not to talk about this name. It isn't just. I mean, it's random, but not random at the same time because we don't.
Yeah.
It depends on which version of the story you believe.
Right. She was absolutely a real person. So
Absolutely.
there's that.
So in this second verse, then, this is where the first verse is pretty straightforward. The second verse starts getting a little more, I wouldn't say complicated, but certainly there's lines in here that can be interpreted in multiple ways. Like right off the bat, I'd been talking stuff in a violent room. What's your take on that line, Angel?
I always thought, I mean, looking at that line, and it have to go along with the second, that there was an argument with a girlfriend. That was the way that I always interpreted it.
Mm-hmm. So a violent room is
Yeah.
kind of like a metaphor for just a
I had a
room
fight at
or a
home.
place, yeah, that a fight occurred. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah.
makes
There was a
sense.
fight at home. I left and
Yeah,
went to the restaurant.
yeah. That's a pretty solid interpretation of those lines. I think it's funny though with that second line, fighting with lovers past. So how one interprets that line really depends on whether or not you consider it possessive lovers or plural lovers. So like
Now
if you think of
that's,
it, yeah. So if you think of it, right, I was thinking of this when I was, because I've always heard it or just listened to it more like with fighting with my lover's past. He doesn't say it that way, but that's
yeah.
kind of how I always thought about it. But then if you think of it like as in plural, fighting with lovers past. So how that would have to be interpreted then, if you think of it that way, is he's fighting. He's like in a fight with a past lover, not current lover with a past.
Yeah.
It's really kind of interesting because how I've seen it transcribed on the internet, the lyrics, they use an apostrophe S, but how it's written in the official lyric on the official lyrics in the Sign of the Times release, from 1987,
Yeah.
is it's just lovers,
It's just
plural,
lovers, right?
no
Hmm.
apostrophe S, possessive there. So it's been kind of transcribed incorrectly over the years, and it actually can change the meaning a little bit depending on which way you think that it's supposed to be. Fighting with lovers past plural, or fighting with lovers past possessive. Regardless, I've always felt or always interpreted it the same way you did. He was in a fight with his lover, and so and the fact that he says lovers past, maybe kind of for me has taken the approach that it's more of a fight about something that happened in the past with his
Hmm.
lover. But but it can be, gosh, you can take a look at that and think he was fighting with multiple lovers from
Yeah.
his past, which is, wow. It's like, why are you still in that close of contact with them and still fighting with them if they're
Right.
past lovers? I don't know.
Right. And is this all at once, or like, are you fighting with multiple people in the same place? Or
Yeah,
it's an
yeah.
interesting thought. Yeah.
It's interesting. And then when you think of it, like with Prince, he actually did, trying to apply some of his personal life into the song. Maybe it wouldn't be so weird for him because he actually employed past lovers. He was
Yeah.
still working with Jill Jones, and they had a fling. He was in close contact with Sheila E. He was still working with Sheila E. This is 1986. He's dating Susanna
Yeah.
Melvoin.
Susanna. Yeah.
So
So that's at least three.
yeah, he's got a close relationship with Sheila and Jill still. I mean, he wasn't working with Vanity anymore. She had left to do her own thing. I'm trying to think of any other potential girlfriends that were public at the time. I'm sure there's others that we did not thinking of,
Yeah.
but the fact that he's still like these women are still in his orbit at this time, where normal non-superstars, we tend to, not that you can't be friends with a past boyfriend or girlfriend, somebody in your past relationship. Certainly, friendships can and often do still exist,
Hmm.
but to be still close enough where you would get into an argument with them, unless you were married and you had a reason where you had to constantly be in touch with them, like you shared custody of children or whatever.
Right.
I just don't. It's just kind of an odd thought to me a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
I
Either
needed
way.
some. Yeah, either way, it's very Prince. I needed
Yeah.
someone with a quicker wit than mine. Dorothy was fast, so that's just kind of a cool way of basically saying that she was smart. And she was exactly what he was looking for in that moment.
Yeah.
He needed like somebody in his mind on equal footing as him in terms of wit and intelligence, which I don't know if that speaks to his girlfriend's intelligence that he was fighting with.
Yeah, that's where I was like, are you suggesting that they weren't on your level?
Yeah, kind of does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I need somebody with a quicker wit than mine, and Dorothy was fast. All right, so then moving on to the third verse. Well, I ordered. Yeah, let me get a fruit cocktail. I ain't too hungry. Dorothy laughed. She said, sounds like a real man to me. You kind of cute. You want to take a bath? And this verse, you do get a few repeats, some echoes of some of the lines.
Hmm.
You're kind of cute. Do you wanna? Do you wanna? So you get a couple of those. But this is where the song kind of gets. It's already a quirky song, but this gets
Yeah.
really quirky starting with this verse. Uh, First of all, Prince orders a fruit cocktail. So he goes to this restaurant, but he's not hungry. So why is he? I can think of a lot of places that somebody can go, let off some steam if he just needed to get out. But I suppose you're thinking he just wanted a place to sit down, maybe not a bar or club that's going to be loud. And restaurants tend to be a little more subdued, quieter, allow some space for the person who's going there. But he's not really that hungry, so he just orders a fruit
A
cocktail.
fruit
and
cocktail.
her response is classic. Sounds like a real man to me. So I just really love this verse, Angel. What do you think about it?
Right. Like, he didn't order a drink. I mean, even at a restaurant, he could have had a drink. He's not hungry, but he
Hmm.
orders a fruit cocktail. It is the most is the most interesting thing in her response. Then, certainly, yeah, sounds like a real man to me. You want a fruit cocktail. Of all the things that you could order, you want a
Hmm.
fruit cocktail. Okay.
I don't know about you, but I'm of the age where when I think of fruit cocktail, I think of that really kind of syrupy. It had like pineapple chunks and those maraschino
Yeah, the
cherries.
maraschino cherries.
That's what I
Right.
think of when I think of fruit
Those
cocktail.
little grapes.
Yep, yep. And they never were all that appealing to me. I'm hoping
No,
that Prince had a much better fruit cocktail from this restaurant than some kind of goopy, syrupy, bottom
I
of the
hope
barrel
so.
fruit.
Definitely. Like those ones that came in, I don't know if they came in a can, and the maraschino cherries just kind of everything was tinted a little red.
Yes.
like, like those,
Super, super unappealing.
doesn't really actually taste like fruit, just tastes like a bunch of sugar. For her to laugh at that, it is cute, from a woman's perspective. A man walks in and he orders that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a real man, but it is also cute.
It is
So,
also, and
yeah.
apparently it's endearing enough because she starts hitting on him. You're kind of
Yeah.
cute. Do you want to take a
Do you want
bath?
to
I mean,
take a bath?
that's a really forward thing to say to somebody. And this is kind of where I'm like, okay, I'm getting dream vibes from this because this is not like a real life situation in most cases. I'm not speaking for all human beings on this planet, but let's say hypothetically you're a person going to a restaurant by yourself. Within seconds of meeting a waitress, she starts hitting on you. Um, I don't know. I feel like a lot of waitresses, they're overworked, they're tired, they
Mhm.
got they're juggling multiple tables, multiple orders. Their mind probably isn't on dating or, maybe trying to flirt with somebody, flirt with a customer.
Right.
It just feels like this is a really kind of a fantasy dream scenario that Prince has concocted.
Definitely. Yeah, it
Okay,
makes
I'm glad
sense,
you're with me on that.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense that these lyrics happened in a dream because the we jumped from a fruit cocktail to you're cute to a bath. The the leap there it is huge. It's
Yeah,
definitely has we've definitely moved to dream at this point. Definitely.
yeah. Okay, we're on the same page.
Yes.
And the whole bath thing, I mean, there's so many examples of Prince talking about baths or showing him in a bathtub. Of course, the When
Yeah.
Doves Cry video comes to mind. The
Hmm.
song Extra Lovable, which never got a release. He wants to take a bath with this girl there. It's just Prince and baths. There's something about it that he really dug. And it was like a really kind of a sign of intimacy, a metaphor for intimacy, getting
Hmm.
naked, taking a bath with somebody, and you're not just in a bathtub. Most bathtubs, you have to be pretty close together, in order to
Definitely.
for two people to fit into a bathtub. You're practically on top of each other, unless it's one of those huge whirlpool baths. But even then, it's really close contact. So
Right.
it's an enormous sign of intimacy, and also showing a little bit of vulnerability to be get naked with somebody else and expose yourself in that way,
Right.
metaphorically, physically, the whole nine. So Prince and baths. That's just you could probably come up with an entire playlist of songs where he
Yeah.
mentions
A
baths.
bath.
So this is just another one of those in that long line of Prince songs where baths have a prominent place in his lyrics.
That is a thought. A playlist of Prince and baths.
Yeah, somebody should get
I
on
may
that.
consider that. It might be me.
Prince and baths. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, doing what I'm doing and going through songs um, from a lyrical perspective, you start noticing these things and uh, patterns. And this is one that came across pretty quickly. And I'm not trying to claim that I just discovered this because this has been something people have talked about for a long time. But you definitely notice it more when you're dissecting lyrics for Prince
Yeah.
songs. Make note, a bath again? Okay, all right. Chalk that one up.
Another bath.
Wow, okay. Prince likes baths. Got it. Check. Oh yeah, I was just thinking another one, purple music. So like in that
Another
time to
bath.
time for your morning bath, sir. So it's just taking the bath. It's like I don't know. I can't remember the last time I took a bath, but anyway. Anything else you want to talk about with this verse besides just how kind of quirky and dreamlike it is?
Yeah, it's playful and it's cute and then moves to weird.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, it's dreamy, but I mean, servers are. I was actually not too long ago having a conversation with some friends and acquaintances about women who are hit on who are servers, and a lot of them were like, we just really want you to just take this plate or take this glass. Do you want a refill? Can you please move on so that I can, get to the next table? I'm
Yeah, they're
exhausted.
working.
My feet hurt. Yeah, I just want to go home after this is over. I don't have time. No, I don't want to give you my number. I don't want your number. I'm
Mhm.
not interested. Yeah.
Doesn't
Everybody
matter
just
how
wants me to
attractive
just,
you are. Yeah.
yeah, what you look like is whatever you ordered. I'm just sitting the plate down so you can cook.
Yep. Yep. That person is only known by their order. Like that scrambled eggs guy, that's French toast guy.
Right.
That woman's
Yeah.
pancakes.
She's waffle. He's, over easy. That's it.
Yep. Okay, so the next verse then, as you mentioned, this is where it starts to get even weirder. Oh, I said, cool, but I'm leaving my pants on, 'cause I'm kind of going with someone. She said, sounds like a real man to me. Mind if I turn on the radio? Oh, my favorite song, she said. And it was Joni singing, help me, think I'm falling. Bring! Phone rang, and she said, whoever's calling can't be as cute as you. Right then and there, I knew I was through. Dorothy Parker was cool. This verse is the epitome of like Prince's quirky, um, just story, going a different directions. Like his brain is moving too fast
Yeah.
for this verse. Like he can't even like finish a line and then he's moving on to the next line, which totally mimics real life, because in real life not everything that we do has a pause after it. Like we're in the middle of
Yeah.
something and the phone rings. Like, yeah, of course the phone isn't going to wait until you're done saying something. You're
Hmm.
likely going to be talking when the phone rings. And
Right.
that's exactly what happens here with you know, with the phone ringing and interrupting him talking about, or her talking about her favorite song from Joni Mitchell. So, all right, let's back up. Angel. So, I'm leaving my pants on. So the first line, because he's still kind of talking about this bath offer that Dorothy Parker gave him at the end of the verse 3. You kind of cue, you want to take a bath. And he says, cool, but I'm leaving my pants on. All right, so what's your take on that?
So yeah, I do want to take the bath, but I'm gonna get in the water with my pants on
Mm-hmm.
because I kind of have a girlfriend, and maybe this is some level of respect for her. that, that's where it's going. I don't want to completely disrespect the relationship, so I'm going to keep my pants on
Yeah,
so that things can kind of stay on the up and up. It's just, I mean, you almost want to give them an but not because you're still getting in the bath.
yeah,
It's just, yeah, it makes it's like it makes sense, but it doesn't.
yeah. He's definitely riding that fine line
Yeah,
between cheating and not cheating.
yeah, leaning way hard over to the cheat part, but he hasn't fallen all the way over there.
Right. It's like
Yeah,
he's feeling like if he leaves his pants on, then, if he has to speak about this encounter later, what did you do? Well, did you meet somebody? What did you do with her? Well, nothing. I kept my clothes on. We just went back to her house. I kept my
right.
clothes on, and he could say that with a
Yeah,
straight face because he technically kept his pants on when he was in this bathtub. Another thing about this, clearly we're in a dream again because she was working 2 seconds ago and now they're back at her apartment.
yeah.
So
Now you're in
either
the bathtub.
either he skipped past the whole part where he just kind of hung out at the restaurant waiting for her shift to get done, or just like dreams do, you magically just end up from one place to the next with no
Yeah,
concept of how you got there. You just boom, snap your finger, now you're
right.
at her place, and
Yeah,
that's
you're
what
one
they're
sequence to the next. Yeah,
exact. There's no transition, logical transition. He's now at her
yeah,
place and uh, kind of going with someone, so he wants to keep his pants on. We talked about that already. Again, sounds like a real man to me. So she's kind of mocking him a little bit again. She ribbed him a bit for the order of a fruit cocktail at a restaurant, and now she's ribbing him again because he wants to keep his pants on. Which I guess if she's trying to get him to sleep with her, she has to kind of respect his decision to
Hmm.
leave his pants on because he's kind of going with somebody. So okay, sounds like a real man to me. Again, because the macho man would have been jumping into the bed with her and eager to consummate this potential one night stand, but he wants to take it slow. You know,
Yeah.
in some ways he wants to take
Yeah.
it slow, or he wants to not do it at all.
Right. That first time she's, sounds like a real man to me. This is he's charming because he's ordering the fruit cocktail. This is, this almost seems like she's giggling when she says it. This time sounds like eye roll. Oh, okay, now there's you sound like a real man now. It's a different tone this time.
Yeah.
It seems like she's taking on a different tone this time.
Hmm. And she's just rolling with it, rolling with whatever it is that he's telling her. Like, he wants to keep pants on, cool, I'll just turn on the
Okay.
radio.
Yeah,
Mind if
like
I turn
okay,
on the
that's what you
radio?
want? Right.
Yep. We'll just
That's how you
chill.
feel, all right.
You sit in that bathtub with your pants, I'll listen to the radio. And of course Prince had to throw in a Joni Mitchell reference,
Right.
which he doesn't really do that a lot. It's not like he's constantly talking about Joni and his songs, but he's never made it very secretive that he admired her and admired her music.
Yes.
You got Joni as one of the controversy on the album cover controversy. One of the
Hmm.
headlines, Joni, and he's also, I'm sure, in other interviews up to this point. So it's not completely surprising that he makes a reference to her here, and that it's the song "Help Me," which is a great song. I don't listen to a ton of Joni Mitchell, but I do like this particular song, "Help Me." It's a
Yeah.
good song. Um,
Definitely. I don't know.
and
I think it
again,
has some meaning here as well. It's fitting for the moment because here is a man who has a girlfriend in a bathtub with another woman, and and Joni is saying, "Help me, I think I'm falling."
mhm,
Of all of the Joni Mitchell songs that he could have chosen, this one is appropriate for the moment. Now, it could have just very well been the one that he pulled out of the air, but to me, it seems like it was maybe something that was chosen on purpose because it is appropriate for what's happening.
yeah, I believe that was probably intentional. Of any Joni song you could have picked, to your point, this one, because the line is
Yeah,
actually "Help me, I think I'm falling in love," but
yeah,
because it gets interrupted, he cuts that, singing that line short because he gets
right.
interrupted by the phone call. Otherwise, it would have gone, "Help me, I think I'm falling in love again," or something like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
but the phone interrupts that part where he's kind of singing off to the side. And I like how she said, "Whoever's calling can't be as cute as you." So even though he's being kind of weird and odd and not taking his pants off and not really like seizing the moment, so to speak, with Dorothy, she's finding it charming, I guess. And
Yeah,
she's still into him. She still thinks he's cute, just like she said he was earlier in the song. "You're kind of cute. Whoever's calling can't be as cute as you,"
he's
she
still
says.
cute.
He's still cute despite
Yeah,
despite kind of the odd behavior that he's exhibiting, and the fact that he admitted that he's kind of going with someone. So what does "kind of going with someone" mean? One can debate that, but I always
yeah,
kind of took that to mean like I'm in the very early stages with somebody. We haven't quite defined it yet. We're not living together by any stretch, but certainly I have feelings. I think she has feelings as well. I don't want to screw it up because it
right,
could be good, but it's a little early to tell.
right. We don't know yet.
Nope, he doesn't know yet either.
Yeah.
Right then and there, I knew I was through. That line can be interpreted a couple different ways too, I think. Um, how do you take that line, the very last line of this verse?
It
What?
strikes me as her flirting has landed. She'd been a little flirty all the way through, but now, they're at her place and in the bathtub, and she's been it's been missing. He's been holding on, to the kind of going with someone all this time, but This last one, whoever's calling can't be as cute as you. That's the one that landed. So now I'm in trouble
Hmm.
because, now this one is the one that makes me feel like whoever, the girlfriend, the possible girlfriend, that's all gone out of the window now. That's good. That's over. That's out of the window now. Whatever it is
Dorothy,
that's going to happen is kind of going to happen.
Dorothy Parker was cool. That was
She
it's
was
kind of
cool.
said under his breath, but that's
Yeah.
it's kind of like a behind the music a little bit, but it's there. You hear it if you listen to
Yeah.
hard enough. Right then
Yeah.
and there, I knew I was through. Okay. So the next verse, my pants were wet, they came off, but she didn't see the movie because she hadn't read the book first. Instead, she pretended she was blind, an affliction brought on by a witch's curse. Dorothy made me laugh. I felt much better, so I went back to the violet room. Let me tell you what I did. I took another bubble bath with my pants on. All the fighting stopped. Next time I'll do it sooner. This is the Ballad of Dorothy Parker. Whew. I mean, this is a hell of a song. This is one of the best
Yeah.
written songs from a lyrical standpoint. And it's so brilliant because the way when you listen to it, you pick up different things all the time. And you pick up little nuances about the way it's sung, about the way the songs or the way the lines are delivered, how they blend into each other, how there's callbacks to previous verses later in the
Hmm.
song. There's talking about it's a story song, but also like if David Lynch had written a Twin Peaks episode for Prince and
Hmm.
he sung it, this is almost how bizarre it is.
Yeah.
So my pants are wet, so they came off. So at this point, if you're thinking of this literally and not metaphorically, he's removed his clothing now. So he's becoming more, he's comfortable with her. He's exposing himself. His fears are starting to melt away. This comes right after the line, I knew I was through.
Yep.
So he takes it now. I can remove, I can shed my clothing. I can expose myself physically, but also you can interpret it to be as a metaphor as well, exposing himself and opening himself up to this woman.
Yeah.
But she didn't see the movie because she hadn't read the
Had
book
read the book
first.
first.
This is probably my favorite line of the song.
Yes.
Of a song with a lot of different lines. This is probably my favorite because it's so clever. And the way I always kind of interpreted this line is she decides not to go through with it, and this is where I think
Yes.
a lot of people think two different ways about this song. They had sex or they didn't have sex, and I always took it to that they didn't. That was my takeaway from the song is they did not consummate it. They did not have sex, and it's because of this line. She didn't see the movie because she hadn't read the book first, so she didn't
Yeah.
pay her dues. She didn't put in the work. I take this to mean like because she didn't read the book, meaning like she didn't get to know him. She hasn't spent the time to
Yes.
get to know him. Like they just met. And reading a book takes much longer than watching a movie. We all know that. You read a book, you're really kind of committing. You're committing
Right.
days and hours to this. Where a movie you can watch in less than 2 hours. Most movies, and it's just like the truncated version. It's the abridged version. It's cool and it's exciting, but it's not the full story. You never get the full story
Yeah.
in a movie. And so the fact that she didn't read the book, she's not getting the full story. So she's not going to go through with this with him.
Yeah.
That's my interpretation. What are
Hmm.
your thoughts on this?
That this is one of if not my, I think one of the best metaphors he's ever in this song and probably in most, if not all. And I agree. I always thought that it was that she chose not to because she didn't know him.
Mm-hmm.
Like as much as she has flirted and the clothes came off and the moment that he chose to be so vulnerable that he removed everything. He removed the clothes physically, and he chose to be emotionally vulnerable with her. She said, "No, I don't want to do it because I just don't know you. I don't know you well enough."
Hmm.
That has always been what I interpreted it to be. She just chose to not do it because she didn't know him.
Yeah. Okay. So we have the same interpretation, but I
Yeah,
guarantee there are people who disagree with us and tell us that in their opinion, which that nobody's right or wrong for sure because we didn't write the song, but
yeah.
their interpretation is that they did have sex, and it's because of the later in this verse where he says, "Dorothy made me laugh. I felt much better, so I went back to the violent room." The whole feeling much
Eh,
better, but I don't mean you can feel better without having sex. I mean, sex does not equal
definitely.
feeling better. Actually, having sex might have made him feel worse, especially if he's kind of going with
Kind of going
someone.
with someone, right?
I would think that that would actually make you feel worse,
Right.
um, unless you're really just strictly thinking about it as like, oh, he had a physical encounter which made him happy,
Made him feel better. Yeah.
which lightened his mood.
Right.
It's there's more to it, and I
And there's
think,
so much more, yeah, to that.
yeah,
So
yeah,
much more than the physical aspect of it.
and Prince always was preaching that too. Like, yeah, sure, he's had. We're not trying to say that the man's never had casual sex, but what we're saying is like in a lot of what I'm saying is like a lot of his songs, he expresses the need for intimacy,
Right.
which equates to basically mind blowing sex if you have that vulnerability and openness with your partner and you're intimate with your partner in a way that only people that have that opportunity to get to know each other better and truly love each other. He's
Right.
always kind of spoken about that in many of his songs as like the epitome of you know sex and how that brings him closer to God. And not to get
Definitely.
too into that because that's not really what this song's about, but that's also another reason why I never interpreted this song to mean that Dorothy and he had sex in the song. I've always interpreted the same way you did. And I love the fact that not only did she pretend she was blind, she has like this backstory, like, "Oh, I'm blind because a witch
I was
cursed me."
cursed. Right.
I mean, it's just another really like endearing aspect of this song to take it there, take the lyrics there. Like I just envision Prince just kind of like stream of consciousness, just writing down stuff. Like, oh yeah, yeah, she's blind. That's why she didn't watch me when I got undressed. And why did she become blind? She became blind from witch's curse, and just
Yeah,
like
she's
stuff
been
that was coming
cursed.
into his head. Why not, right? Because if we're approaching the song like it's just like a dream in many ways, anything's possible, right? So,
Definitely. Yeah,
but it
for
also speaks
sure.
to, again, the character of Dorothy in the song being quick witted. And this is just another quirky aspect of her personality that she would go there to the nth degree in the song and concoct this story about why she can't watch him get undressed because she's been blinded by a witch. It's just a really kind of fun way
Yeah.
to express the sentiment without it, being or while still
Too
being
heavy.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not heavy. It's fun. And
Yeah,
that's
it's not
what it's
heavy.
all about.
Which I mean, it's on the fly. Something she just comes up with real fast, and it's funny,
Hmm.
which would make him laugh. It's moves right into the next line that it would make him laugh.
Yeah, Dorothy made him laugh, and he felt much better, so he went back to the
Yeah.
violin. So I just mean it, or I just take that to mean again. She was basically in the context of the song exactly what he needed to get over whatever hump he was experiencing in his personal life. This encounter maybe didn't go exactly the way either of them planned, but it was exactly what he needed, and she was able to assist in that way because of who she is. Like her
Right.
personality allowed him to feel better because she was quick-witted, she was funny, she was pretty, and it was just kind of like I had a really kind of cool experience with this person, and it made me feel better, and it didn't even have to be sexual.
Yeah, which is, one all of that together is yet more of a reason to believe that it was not a casual sex situation. It was just an encounter that was just something refreshing, I guess. I mean, even considering by the time we got to Sign of the Times, we casual sex was not something that you would have even thought of, where he was concerned. But all of this is enough, even just in this passage, I mean, everybody's interpretation is what it is. But,
Hmm.
just for me, everything about this says that it went the way that it went. She was hilarious. She was fun. She was different than the fighting that was happening wherever he'd come from. And it was enough to lighten the mood so that you could go back home.
Hmm. And how I take like the last kind of section of lines where he says, "I took another bubble bath with my pants on. All the fighting stopped. Next time I'll do it sooner." I always kind of interpreted this to say like his character in the song figured out a way to deal with his relationships, maybe deal with conflict better. He
Yeah.
takes a bubble bath with his pants on because it reminds him of his experience with Dorothy Parker that he really enjoyed, helps him relax, helps him cope. And this is what he's going to do next time instead of running off, going to a restaurant on the promenade late at night and hoping to meet another Dorothy Parker. He's just going to just kind of revisit that night in his mind by taking a bubble
Yeah.
bath with his pants on. That's how I take these last section of lines. Do you have a different kind of approach to how you interpret that?
Yeah, actually, I agree. I think that to me it is exactly that. And instead of the fight, I mean, the fighting is going to occur because people have conflict. But instead of it going on for however many hours that people can fight for, because once you're in it, you're in it. So instead of it going on for however long it is before you walk out of a door and slam it to go looking for the next Dorothy Parker, then in those moments when you realize that I don't want to do this, then you can go back to those moments a lot sooner than it took to walk out of the door, so you can resolve it all before it comes to that the next time.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep, that's exactly how I think it is. It's like a lesson. He learned a lesson in this experience. I feel like in many ways
Yeah.
he turned a bad situation into good, and as we talked about earlier, he was really straddling that line of maybe doing something he was going to regret, especially since he was wanting to make this work, potentially wanting to make this work with this new girl.
Yeah.
But he didn't, and instead he had now a situation that he can think back fondly of instead of with embarrassment or shame,
Right.
which is great. Which is kind of like the moral of the story is open yourself up to experiences and encounters that can nourish you and make you better, and not necessarily let a lot of the negativities of the world get you down, and find ways to have fun and be silly sometimes if you need to be. Take a
Yeah.
bath with your pants on. I mean, who does that? Nobody, of course. But
Right.
but if it makes you feel better, then why not? What harm does it do?
Right. And I mean, you don't know it's going to make you feel better until you do.
Yep, got to try
I mean,
things.
I don't know. Maybe tomorrow, maybe I might just take a bath with my pants on. Maybe it might make me feel better.
It might make you feel amazing, Angel. You just never know until you
You
try
just
it.
never know. I don't know until I give it a try and see what happens. I might be pissed off when I get out because
I was just gonna say you might get out of that bathtub and think, why did I do that? Now I've got these soaking wet pants that I have to
and
go
I'm
dry.
calling you like, Jason.
This don't do it. Don't do it.
Bad idea. It's a
It's not
bad
worth it.
idea. I mean, it's everything is so in this moment that we're all living in right now, everything is so damn heavy, and understandably so. So we have to find some moments to lighten things up sometimes. And if that is, I mean, at this point, I swear I am going to use taking a bubble bath with my pants on to mean it's going to be whatever I choose it to be. Maybe it is standing at the back door and screaming so I feel better. That's my mom used to always do that when she was frustrated. She'd stand at the back door, open it up, and scream. And then she felt better. We were little kids, and then she would encourage us to do the same thing. There's something so freeing and good feeling about a moment to just scream and then feel better
Mhm.
after it was over. Maybe that's the moment. Maybe it's, whatever thing it is that makes you feel better. I am now going to name taking a bubble bath with my pants on.
There you go.
Yeah, that's going to be the thing that I'm going to do now. But, we have to find these light moments or create them for
Yeah.
ourselves, so that we can find something to feel good or feel better about. Otherwise we're just gonna, it's too heavy. We got to
Yeah.
find a way to lighten it up now. And you don't have to explain to anybody why it is you're coming home in wet pants.
Nope. Mhm.
If you choose to actually do this, and straddle the line, because I'm sure at some point, what we don't get, and what I always think about is when he came back home, he definitely had to explain why his pants were wet.
Yep. Good point.
He had to
Unless, of
explain
course,
that.
it's a
So,
dream, because then his pants would just magically dry when he showed back up.
yes, definitely. There's
There's
that
always
part
that
too.
option. Uh,
Yes,
but yeah, mental health is important. So you're right. You're absolutely right. Everybody needs to
for
find their
sure.
own version of what Prince did in this song to get through his tough times. Because
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on right now in the world, and even if we weren't experiencing everything that we're experiencing, well, our society, there's always going to be something, right? I mean, we all know
right.
this. Pandemic might be over, and let's say racism is solved tomorrow. There's still going to be
Yeah,
something else.
there's
Uh,
always a something
there's
else.
always something else that we need to kind of, and if, it could be just listening to the song. It could be our taking bubble bath with our jeans on. So
It is my go-to whenever I'm
it,
feeling annoyed.
yeah,
It's my
it's a
go-to.
great, it's a great song for so many
Yeah,
reasons, so many reasons. But I think the lyrics are a huge reason why I like this song. But as we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, the music is really key as well, in
yeah,
how it just fits together so perfectly. And anytime a song like this, I think that's why so many of us had a negative reaction to the version with horns, is
hmm
because we think this song is perfect as is,
it
and
is.
doing something different or tweaking it or remixing it or whatever. No, don't. Just leave it alone. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's
there's no
perfectly
need to fool
fine
with
as it is.
perfection. Yeah, it's fine the way that it is. And I don't know, I mean, I didn't love the horns, but it also felt the mix was weird for me. It's almost as if they laid the horns on top of it and didn't mix it completely. It was just odd. Like, just, it's perfect the way that it is. Let's just
Yeah,
leave it how it is. Yeah,
agreed.
it's good.
Agreed. All
Yeah.
right, so that brings us to the end of the episode, Angel. At this time, I guess if you would like to kind of share anything that you're doing or anything you want to promote at this point.
Thank you. So I in my day job is I am a baker. I own a home-based bakery, Daisy Bee and Company. My mom's name is Daisy, and so she is alive and kicking because people always say, "Oh, did she pass away?" She did not. I just honor her with the name of my bakery. It's Daisy Bee and Company, and I am local and I also ship within the United States. And I currently sell the perfect cookie. It is the most perfect chocolate chip cookie that you will ever have. I promise it truly is. And you can order it at my website. It is daisybeeco.com, DAISY, the letter BCO.com. It is 5 1.5 ounce cookies for $10 plus shipping.
Okay. Well, I definitely will
Yes.
put that website in the show notes and have links
Thank
to it so people
you.
can easily access it. And I'm actually looking at it right now, The Perfect Cookie.
The
I
perfect
see a
cookie.
picture of The Perfect Cookie right now, and it, it looks amazing. I think I'm kind of hungry right now, apparently. So,
Thank
unlike Prince,
you.
I would order more than a fruit cocktail if I was at a restaurant. It seems like Prince never was hungry though. for him
Never.
to for him to say like, "I'm not too hungry. I ain't too hungry." It's like, yeah, we know, dude.
You're
You probably
never
never eat.
hungry. Right.
Uh,
That is like that's my day job. That is what I do. Also, I would be remiss to not say I also work with a wonderful it's a great time. I I am a writer and I work with Julian Long at Storytime with Julian. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. And we are Storytime with Julian. We read Black literature, it's fiction. We do short stories Tuesday and Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us every Tuesday and Thursday. It's always a great time.
mhm. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for being on the show, Angel. I appreciate your insight, appreciate your perspective on the song. It sounds like we have very similar thoughts on the song.
I
You
think
just never
so.
know. You just never know when you have a guest and you're talking about a song for the first time if you're going to be on the same page. It seems like you and I are pretty much on the same page with this one,
I
which is
think so.
perfectly fine. I think the song, has its charms, and we're both very much into it for a lot of different reasons. And
Yeah.
again, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was an absolute blast. I'd love to do it again.
Okay,
I would love to.
deal. So this has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. Wanted to thank Angel Monique, a new guest of mine, for being on the show. You can find the show anywhere, basically Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, using the Press Rewind Pod name. Look it up there. I also have a blog, pressrewind.net, where I do some writing and just some musings on music and Prince. And also make sure to check out the Discord if you like the Discord server as a way to communicate and talk about things. I have a Discord server for this podcast where we talk about Prince. Just another way, like if you have a desire to talk about Prince and you don't have anybody in your real life that can talk to Prince about, join the Discord. We talk about Prince. That's what it's about. And if you like the show, go ahead on Apple, iTunes, and give me a rating. I think that's pretty much the only avenue that the show is on where you can really rate it. I mean, I'm on Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, but it's really Apple's the big one. So if you enjoy the show, a rating would be greatly appreciated and helpful. And until next time, goodbye.